As we grow older, life unfolds in ways we never quite expect. By the time we reach 55, many of us have lived through countless experiences, some beautiful, some challenging. Perhaps you thought this stage of life would look a little different. Maybe you envisioned traveling the world with your lifelong partner or spending your golden years with family always nearby. But life had other plans. Whether it's through divorce, the passing of a spouse, or a conscious decision to go solo, many of us find ourselves unexpectedly single later in life. At first, it can feel intimidating, even lonely. But what if being single after 55 isn't something to fear? What if it's actually an incredible opportunity, a chance to rewrite your life on your own terms? Before you shake your head in disbelief, hear me out. Being single after 55 might just be the most liberating, empowering phase of your life. There's a kind of freedom that comes with living for yourself. One that can reignite your passions, transform your relationships, and bring more peace and joy than you ever thought possible. So today, I'm going to share 13 reasons why life can actually be better when you're single after 55. And I'm willing to bet some of these will surprise you, or even spark a little debate. Ready? Let's dive in. Now, let's take a deeper dive into why life can truly become better when you're single after 55. It's not just about being free from a relationship. It's about embracing a new chapter filled with possibilities, ones you may never have noticed before. At first, the idea of being on your own might feel like a setback. After all, society tends to paint single life as lonely or incomplete, especially in our later years. But what if that perspective is completely wrong? What if being single is exactly what you need to rediscover who you are? Imagine waking up each morning knowing the entire day belongs to you. No compromises, no emotional balancing act, and no worrying about meeting anyone else's expectations. This might sound unfamiliar at first, even unsettling, but soon, it becomes a kind of liberation you've never experienced before. For years, you might have been the peacekeeper, the one who managed everyone else's emotions, made sacrifices to maintain harmony, or always prioritized others' needs over your own. But when you're single, all of that falls away, leaving you with a blank canvas to create the life you've always wanted. I know a woman named Margaret, who found herself single at 60 after her marriage ended. At first, she felt lost, unsure how to fill her days without the structure her relationship had provided. But slowly, something incredible happened. Margaret began reconnecting with hobbies she hadn't touched in decades: painting, gardening, and even ballroom dancing. For the first time in years, her days were filled with joy, not obligation. I felt like I was meeting myself all over again, she said. I wasn't just someone's wife, mother, or caregiver anymore. I was me, and I loved who I found. Being single also brings with it an undeniable freedom to live authentically. When you're in a long-term relationship, it's easy to lose pieces of yourself over time. Little compromises can pile up until you hardly recognize the person staring back at you in the mirror. You might change the way you dress, the way you spend your weekends, or even the way you dream, all to align with someone else's preferences. But when you're on your own, you get to decide who you want to be, without judgment or compromise. There's no one around to critique your choices or second-guess your decisions. Want to repaint your kitchen in bright, cheerful colors? Do it. Feel like binge-watching old movies until 2 a.m.? Go ahead. You're free to live spontaneously, unapologetically, and without limitations. This newfound independence extends to your financial life too. Money can be a sensitive topic in relationships, often leading to stressful negotiations over how to spend, save, or invest. But when you're single, you regain full control over your finances. Every choice is yours to make based on your values and desires. Have you always dreamed of traveling the world or starting a new business? Now's your chance. I remember meeting a woman named Susan who did just that. After years of putting off her dream vacation, she finally booked a solo trip to Italy. She returned home with stories, memories, and a renewed sense of purpose. Perhaps the most profound change, though, is how your relationships evolve. You may find that being single opens new doors with your children, friends, and community. Without the complexities of a partnership influencing your family dynamics, you have the chance to connect with your adult children in more meaningful ways. You're no longer managing a shared household or trying to coordinate differing parenting styles. You can just be, a calm, steady presence they can turn to without complications. And intimacy? It becomes simpler and entirely on your terms. There's no pressure, no hidden expectations. If you choose to pursue new connections, you do so freely, without the emotional weight that often accompanies long-term relationships. Every day you wake up with the exciting realization that you're in complete control. No more negotiating every small decision. No more emotional caretaking. Just you, your dreams, and the beautiful blank canvas of this stage in life. Let's take things even deeper now. You might be thinking, all right, I understand the benefits of independence and freedom, but is it really better to be single after 55? What about the companionship, the comfort of having someone by your side? That's a fair question, and it's one many people ask. But here's the twist. What if the idea of long-term companionship isn't always as comforting as we've been led to believe? Let me explain with a story. There's a man named Robert who had been married for 35 years. On the outside, his marriage seemed stable, even enviable. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. The relationship had grown cold over time. Conversations were polite but shallow. They hadn't truly connected in years, and every day felt like a quiet compromise. Robert stayed because it felt like the right thing to do, until one day he asked himself, is this it? Is this how I want to spend the rest of my life? It wasn't an easy decision, but Robert eventually chose to leave. His friends thought he was crazy. You're too old to start over, they said. You'll be lonely. But what happened next shocked everyone, especially Robert. The loneliness they warned him about never really came. Sure, there were moments of doubt, but those were far outweighed by the sense of peace he felt. For the first time in decades, his life was quiet, but not the empty kind of quiet. It was peaceful, reflective, and freeing. It had space to think, to feel, to simply be. You see, we often equate being alone with being lonely, but the two couldn't be more different. In fact, some of the loneliest people I know are in long-term relationships that no longer bring them joy. They're stuck in the company of someone who no longer sees them, no longer understands them. And that, my friends, is a far deeper loneliness than anything you'll experience on your own. But being single is a chance to fill your life with the kind of company that truly enriches your soul. You get to choose who you spend time with, friends who uplift you, family who supports you, and communities that inspire you. It's a chance to build relationships on your own terms. And that brings me to something else that might surprise you. When you're single after 55, your social life doesn't shrink. It expands. I've seen it time and time again. Without the routines and limitations of a partnership, people find themselves reconnecting with old friends, joining new social groups, or picking up hobbies they'd forgotten about. Suddenly, their calendars are filled with meaningful connections, ones they chose, not ones that came as part of a relationship package. I knew a woman named Helen who started volunteering at a local animal shelter after her husband passed away. What started as a way to fill her afternoons turned into a passionate community. She made new friends, found a sense of purpose, and even started organizing adoption events. I feel more alive now than I have in years, she told me. Of course, there will always be people who say, but what about love? Isn't it better to have someone to grow old with? And the answer is, it depends on what kind of love you're looking for. The plot twist here is that love doesn't always have to come in the form of a romantic relationship. Love can be found in friendships, family, your passions, and most importantly, in yourself. So, let me leave you with a question. What if being single isn't the absence of love, but the discovery of a new kind of love, one rooted in freedom, self-respect, and joy? This new chapter is not about settling for less. It's about choosing more peace, more connection, more fulfillment. Now that we've explored how being single opens the door to true freedom and deeper connections, let's talk about something a little more personal: intimacy. This is where things can get complicated. In long-term relationships, intimacy often becomes entangled with expectations, compromises, and sometimes even unspoken power dynamics. It can shift from being a source of joy to something that feels like a duty. You might find yourself negotiating for affection or, worse, feeling as though intimacy is a reward tied to your behavior. Sound familiar? When you're single, though, intimacy takes on a whole new meaning. Here's the twist. You get to decide what intimacy looks like for you, without the rules or pressures that can come with a long-term relationship. It becomes entirely on your terms. Whether you want a deep, committed connection, a casual relationship, or no physical connection at all, it's entirely up to you. For some, this newfound autonomy leads to the discovery that physical intimacy is no longer a priority, and that's perfectly okay. I know a woman named Diane who once told me, after my marriage ended, I realized I wasn't interested in dating again. I felt more comfortable in my own skin than ever before, and I didn't want to complicate my life with a romantic relationship. Instead, I poured my energy into friendships, travel, and rediscovering who I am. For others, being single can reignite the excitement of dating and exploration. Think about it. When was the last time you got to experience the thrill of meeting someone new, with no strings attached and no pressure to be anything other than yourself? Being single after 55 isn't about following the dating rules you knew in your 20s. It's about having fun, being open, and deciding what works for you. And here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes, in this phase of life, you meet people who fit into your world in surprising ways. They may not look like the kind of partner you imagined, but because you're no longer confined by society's expectations of what a relationship should be, you're free to connect with them however you choose. But let's take it a step further. What if the most profound intimacy you can experience isn't with someone else at all? What if it's with yourself, understanding your needs, your boundaries, and embracing the person you've become? Too often we forget that self-intimacy, knowing who we are, what we want, and what brings us joy, is the foundation for any meaningful relationship, whether it's with friends, family, or a romantic partner. When you're single, you have the time and space to build that relationship with yourself. It's funny, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives giving parts of ourselves away, to our partners, our children, our careers, that we sometimes forget who we were to begin with. Being single gives you a chance to gather those pieces back together and rebuild something stronger, more whole. And while we're on the topic of rebuilding, let's talk about rediscovering your passions. So many people in long-term relationships set aside the things that once made them feel alive. Maybe you loved writing poetry, hiking, or playing the guitar. Or maybe you've always wanted to learn something new, like painting or photography, but never had the time. When you're single, those excuses disappear. You have the freedom to immerse yourself in these passions without compromise. I once knew a man named James who started taking cooking classes after his marriage ended. What began as a way to fill lonely evenings turned into a full-blown passion. He became so good at it that he started hosting dinner parties, inviting friends and family for gourmet meals. "I never thought I'd enjoy something like this so much," he said. "It's brought a whole new dimension to my life." Here's the real magic. When you rediscover your passions, you also rediscover parts of yourself that you thought were long gone. These moments of self-discovery remind you that life is far from over. It's just beginning in a new and exciting way. So, the question isn't, can life be better when you're single after 55? The real question is, are you ready to embrace everything it has to offer? If you've made it this far, you're probably starting to see that being single after 55 is not a setback but an opportunity. But let me take it even further and talk about something we often don't fully appreciate: your home. Yes, your living space can become a powerful symbol of your independence and a reflection of who you truly are. In a long-term relationship, your home is often a shared space filled with compromises. The furniture, the decor, even how rooms are used, these decisions are rarely yours alone. You might have wanted a cozy reading nook by the window, but instead the space became a home office. Or maybe you preferred warm, inviting colors on the walls, but your partner insisted on neutral tones. But when you're single, your home becomes a blank canvas for self-expression. You can finally turn that spare bedroom into a personal library, an art studio, or even a meditation space. Whatever makes your soul feel at peace. Want to paint the walls a vibrant color that makes you smile every morning? Do it. No discussions. No negotiations. Just you and your vision. I once knew a woman named Carol who did exactly that. After her divorce, she transformed her home into what she called her sanctuary of joy. She filled it with plants, bright colors, and quirky decor she had always loved but never felt free to display. "It felt like reclaiming myself," she said. Every room reflected a piece of who I am, and walking into my house felt like a warm embrace. Now you might be thinking, sure, I can decorate however I want, but what about the social aspect? Won't life feel a little lonely without someone to share it with? That's a valid concern, but here's the surprise. Being single can actually enhance your social life. When you're in a relationship, your social world often revolves around shared friends, family obligations, and events you attend as a couple. But when you're on your own, you have the freedom to redefine your social life. You can reconnect with old friends, make new ones, and choose how and when you want to spend your time. Here's the twist. Your social life often becomes richer and more fulfilling because it's based entirely on what brings you joy. There's no pressure to attend events that don't interest you or socialize with people who drain your energy. Instead, you can focus on building meaningful connections that align with your values and passions. Take Michael, for example. After years of attending social events out of obligation, he decided to join a hiking group once he became single. Not only did he rediscover his love for nature, but he also made some of the closest friends he's ever had. I realized I had been missing out on experiences that truly mattered to me, he said. I wasn't just showing up, I was living. And speaking of living, let's not forget the ultimate luxury that comes with being single: peace and quiet. There's something profoundly healing about having control over your environment, being able to enjoy a calm morning with a cup of coffee, taking a walk at your own pace, or spending an afternoon reading without interruptions. While companionship can be wonderful, the constant activity and noise that come with a shared life can be overwhelming. When you're single, you have the gift of stillness, the ability to pause, reflect, and appreciate the simple pleasures of life. You get to recharge your energy and focus on what truly matters. So, here's a question for you. When was the last time you truly enjoyed your own company? Not because you had to, but because you wanted to? Being single after 55 isn't just about freedom. It's about reclaiming your life, your space, and your time. It's about creating a life that feels deeply and authentically yours. This isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of a bold new chapter. So what do you think? Has this changed your perspective on what life can look like after 55? Maybe you're starting to see the possibilities: freedom, self-discovery, deeper connections, and a life that's fully your own. This isn't just about being single. It's about reclaiming your happiness, your time, and your future. You've spent years giving to others, your family, your career, your relationships. Now it's time to give something back to yourself. This new chapter is waiting for you to fill it with adventure, passion, and peace. But here's the thing, you are in control. You decide what this chapter will look like. Will you embrace it? If you found this inspiring, comment 1 below. If it didn't resonate, comment 0. We want to hear from you either way. Your feedback matters. Thank you for watching. Remember, life is just beginning, on your own terms.